all you queens and cryptids, and welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast where boomers are heard, but not seen. I'm your host, Brett Bode, and with me, as always, are the same two people you've always heard on this podcast.
I'm Mel.
I'm not Samantha.
Oh, that's right. Oh, wait, we do have a slight lineup change. Wow. I've been made a liar of. Actually, our Samantha for today is none other than my very own mother. Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
I
think.
Yeah, we'll see, won't we?
To be determined.
We'll see.
Yeah. I was kind of trying to write a joke to make at some point of like, and my mom bought me the shirt. And then I looked down at the shirt I was wearing and I was like, she did. Literally, she did buy me the shirt. So, yeah, thanks, Mom. But today we are talking about the 1978 classic by John Carpenter, Halloween.
And we're talking about it because this is our Halloween episode.
Yeah, it's our Halloween special.
Ooh.
Spooky. So where do we start on this thing?
I'll start by just apologizing in advance to you. Are we just calling you Mom?
Brett's mom or
Brett's mom, Luann.
Mrs. Bode, Luann. I think all's fine.
Luanimal.
Okay.
If we want to be informal.
Yes.
I'll just apologize ahead of time.
Sure.
And for everything.
I'll answer to everything.
In general.
Everything.
I'm so sorry. But okay, so I guess we'll start out by grilling you.
Okay.
So you're our first, Samantha replacement.
Mm-hmm.
You're our first auxiliary Samantha.
Ooh, I like
Okay.
that. And
I'm a big Samantha fan, by the way, so it's big shoes to fill.
That's
well,
true.
she's not here, so you don't have to butter her up.
Yeah.
You should save that energy for us. But okay, so we'll start out with just maybe getting to know you a little bit.
Okay.
We've heard about you a bit because Brett is always yapping about his family. It's weird, because
How I restricted his viewing habits when he was a child.
And how I've enacted my revenge by making you watch a bunch of sicko movies that you hate.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's it always makes me uncomfortable because you guys love each other and stuff, and it's just very shocking. But why
Not
don't
relatable.
hashtag couldn't be me. So if you could at first just explain to us, how do you define horror?
Well, I think it's anything that makes you jump, scream, close your eyes.
Oh.
Something that gets a real physical reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. So would you define this movie as horror in that respect?
I would.
Ooh.
I would.
Can you tell us one of the why did you pick this movie?
Well, it was the first Halloween-themed movie there really was that I knew of. And I saw it in the theater.
Ooh.
And that was really special. And I guess that was, and I didn't know who Jamie Lee Curtis was.
Oh yeah, she was
That
like
was
a
her
nobody.
first
right?
movie.
It was her first movie.
You
She
know.
was 19.
And looking back on it, she really could act.
I agree.
I haven't seen it in a long time, and I kind of expected to see amateur, but she was good. So it's the classic Halloween movie. It is scary. It is creepy. And I like it.
It is very atmospheric.
Very atmospheric. And I like the weirdo music.
We are definitely going to talk about the music.
Oh, yeah, you must.
But another question for you. So you said you saw this in theaters.
Mhm.
Were you always a fan of horror?
No. Well, that's not true. Movies at the movie theater, that was probably one of the first ones I've ever seen in the theater. I grew up with black and white television, and I was a fan of The Outer Limits,
Okay.
Twilight Zone, and then Night Gallery. But a lot of these were on when I was young, and I could only watch them when the babysitter was there.
Oh,
So my
good
sisters would go
tie-in.
upstairs to bed, and I would tell the babysitter that I wanted to watch Outer Limits.
And I'm
Twilight
definitely
Zone.
allowed to.
Yeah.
You'd say.
I would
Yeah.
say I'm allowed to. And I was the oldest, so you have that little mature vibe about you. So that's when I would see them, and I loved those. I love those shows. Well, first of all, they're in black and white, which is, makes them darker. And there was always aliens, things like that, otherworldly experiences. And I enjoyed that. I didn't see slashers or anything like that. And I still don't like slasher movies. That's not my idea of horror.
This is one of maybe the prototypical kind of like slasher movies. Because I think a lot of people credit this with not inventing the genre, but like being one of the first in the genre.
I would say it sort of maybe popularized the genre and sort of codified some of its tropes that were later used by all of the ones in its wake.
Yet it wasn't, in my opinion, that graphic.
No.
And you saw it coming. You know, especially when he's in his ghost costume.
Ooh, I love that.
Me too. That's one of my favorite scenes.
Creepy. And just watching her reactions to him, thinking it's still her boyfriend.
Right.
Getting really pissed at him, like, you're such a jerk.
Like, fine, well, I'm just going to call Lori then.
Exactly.
And to be fair, Michael Myers is a jerk. So
you know what? He always was, I guess.
Yeah.
What are some other movies that you would say define your taste in horror?
I kind of thought about, because I'm not like you guys, I'm not obsessed with horror movies, so I had to think about it. And what I did, if you're interested, is I kind of went through by decade.
I'm very
what
interested.
movies were very interesting to me. And I think I'll start with the 60s. Well, obviously Psycho, Rosemary's Baby, and another movie, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yeah, we actually mentioned that on a
That
recent episode.
was so creepy and scary to me. And those are probably the three that I can remember and go, oh yeah, I really like those movies. And I would guess, maybe I saw Psycho in the theater, but the others I think I eventually, Rosemary's Baby. But we didn't go to the movies much as a family, and I certainly couldn't really, go myself.
You weren't going to get the whole family together to go see Rosemary's Baby.
No. And then we progressed to the 70s, and I have down The Exorcist. Loved Alien, just rocked my world. I was at my first job out of college, and a whole bunch of us decided to go see it. And it was so much fun to see. And Sigourney Weaver, I had never seen such a strong, powerful woman lead a movie like that. And I was hooked. So that, and I liked Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The Donald Sutherland one?
The Donald Sutherland one. Loved
it.
That's the, is that the original? Yeah, you're right.
There's an older one.
That's right. It had Kevin McCarthy in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that one. I liked Carrie.
Ooh,
absolutely.
Duel. Have you ever seen Duel?
I say that's the first one you've mentioned that I don't think I've seen.
And there's a really old movie that I only saw once, and I have to see it again. It's called The Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Oh yeah,
the Argento film that I think
yes,
I
have to. That has stayed with me over the years.
I
couldn't tell you the plot.
Well, you know what? It's Argento, so
okay,
probably no one can.
Yeah, there may not be a plot.
You just let it wash over you.
Exactly.
And then, if you're okay with me going to the 80s.
Keep going.
One of my all-time favorite movies is Poltergeist.
Oh,
yes.
Excellent.
In all genres. I mean, and then there's Jo Beth Williams, who was badass in that too. The Fly, The Shining, of course, Aliens, and An American Werewolf in London.
God, I'm just so jealous. Because my parents, I just could never hear them talk about movies like this.
Oh, I loved American Werewolf in London.
I love that movie. We were supposed to. We go to that horror convention every year, and this past year it was like all werewolf themed because they were having the two guys who were the leads in that.
Really?
And then both of them had to drop out for different, like, legit reasons. But it was still werewolf themed. But we're like, oh, the werewolves are gone. But that movie is really
and the
great.
actor that played the guy that transforms into a werewolf, he used to do Dr. Pepper commercials before that where he would dance.
Oh.
That guy can dance. It was, I'm a pepper, she's a pepper, and they'd have other teens dancing with him. So then when he was all of a sudden in a movie, we all had a crush on him. We all wanted to go see it.
The Dr. Pepper guy.
Yeah, you want to see him get mauled to death by a werewolf.
That movie, and I think the thing I like about certain horror movies, when there's an emotional depth, when there's a connection, a love interest, a friendship, and it goes bad due to circumstances beyond control. That's kind of that gets me emotionally.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree, because one of the ones you mentioned, The Fly,
Oh.
I love it, but I've only seen it once because I thought it was so sad that I just truly have not been able to rewatch
it was.
even though I thought it was amazing.
Really. And then I guess the 90s, Silence of the Lambs, Misery, and The Blair Witch. I love The Blair Witch.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was found footage and it was so creepy and shaky and you really felt like, you know.
So you loved all these awesome, horrific movies and you would not let Brett watch these as a kid?
No.
Why?
Well, because I don't know, but I always felt I liked things more age appropriate. I never would say no, but it was always get a little older.
Yes.
You know, but then when my kids reached 18, I'm like, done. You're on your own.
Yeah, that's
I've done all I can.
Yeah.
Watch whatever you want. But I just kind of felt emotionally and socially. And also with Brooke,
my sister,
I didn't want her to see anything that was also so male gaze based that where the women have to be hot. And you know what I mean? Where she would get the wrong idea about growing up, that the most important thing for you is being beautiful to men. And a lot of those movies, it was always about the hot guy and the girl trying to get his attention. And I can't think of a good example of that.
Oh, I mean,
but you know, I just wanted to keep her from that.
That's your daughter.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. But him, yeah, he didn't like to be scared when he was young. When we would go out trick or treating, he was always terrified.
And he was okay with the male gaze.
Yeah, yes, he was.
As a male gay myself.
Yes, right. He was always fine with that. And my daughter's now appropriately fine with it, but I didn't want that message to get to her as a feminist. Oh, one I forgot. Jacob's Ladder.
Oh,
yeah, you kind of have the entire
that one had
gamut
emotional impact on me. Plus, Tim Robbins was one of my celebrity crushes.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I always grew up being told that he was like a filthy liberal. So
he
I wasn't,
and he still
I wasn't
is, I
really
believe.
supposed to like him. No, he famously still
yes, he is.
Yes.
He's still a filthy liberal. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome
For sharing that. You have a great taste in,
thank
in
you.
movies.
Yeah, what the hell happened to me? Oh.
Yeah. But okay, so let's talk about Halloween.
Yeah. So as I said, 1978, directed by John Carpenter, written by him and his producing partner and co-writer and wife at one point, Deborah Hill. And she co-wrote on several of his big early movies. I think she doesn't always get enough credit.
And it was written in 10 days.
Yeah.
It was thrown together.
Really?
Yes, it was like...
That's
and I think Donald Pleasance filmed all of his scenes in like 5 days.
You know, horror movies have always really... Like, we talked about this a little bit in our... What was it? The Substance? No. Our last episode, Silence of the Lambs, where we talked about Roger Corman. Where, like, the horror genre has a history of sometimes being really sort of, like, seat of the pants, like, low budget... And there are, like, really big budget, amazing horror movies, but then there's, like, an equal number, like you mentioned, The Blair Witch, and, like, there are so many that are really just, like, I don't know, like, these auteur sort of, like, love projects.
Mm.
Not that I would say this is that, because this movie was kind of, like, it was bought, right? It was, like, John Carpenter, make a movie about babysitters getting killed.
Yeah, and then I think another suggestion from one of the producers was, and maybe set it during Halloween. And it was going to be set over, I think, the course of a few days. And they realized it was cheaper to set it all in one day because you have fewer costumes.
Yeah.
So like, okay, then we'll just do it on Halloween.
Well, and how relatable to your audience babysitting. Really. Most young women babysat at one point.
Well, and you
in their
were
life.
saying how when you were a kid, you'd watch, The Twilight Zone with the
my
babysitter,
babysitter.
and Jamie Lee Curtis they're watching what, like Night of the Living Dead or something?
They're watching The Thing from Another World.
Okay.
Terribly scary movies she was letting them watch, right?
Well, The Thing from Another World is a little cheesy by today's standards.
That was.
But
one of John Carpenter's favorites that he later remade as The Thing in 1981.
Yeah, and he had been selected by the producer to make this because he had done Assault on Precinct 13. And so they had just kind of selected him, and it was really just perfect for him because he scored it all.
Yes, he did all the music. is a very prolific composer. That's all he likes to do now.
And his wife at the time, who had helped write this, she had been a babysitter. And so she wrote a lot of the dialogue for the young teens. And it's really just sort of become the blueprint for a lot of these, like, young teenage slasher type movies. And I'm like you, like, I'm not a huge slasher person. Brett is.
I am.
Totally, like, a slasher fan.
Yeah, I wouldn't see Saw.
Well, I don't know if I would call Saw a slasher.
Well, but in my imagination, with
People
the name Saw,
people get slashed.
Those kind of movies, I don't want to see.
There is some slashing going on.
Okay.
It's a different type of thing.
A victim of incorrect thinking.
But I do want to talk about the music in this. So John Carpenter famously does a lot of his own scoring with synth music. And I would say Halloween is probably one of the most famous movie themes of all time.
Definitely. Especially, like, as horror is concerned, it's the Halloween score and then maybe Tubular Bells from The Exorcist and the Psycho music.
But I was like, okay, so just kind of like a funny, slightly off-topic thing, but do you guys know who H. John Benjamin is? He does, like, the voice of Bob on Bob's Burgers.
Yes, I do know who he is.
So he is releasing his, like, third jazz album.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So he basically he's a comedian and he's a voice actor. So he has his second album he released is all covers of famous movie themes. And one of them he does is Halloween. And the gimmick for these is he gets, like, really amazing, like, orchestras and jazz, like, really, like, amazing,
like, jazz ensembles,
professional jazz combos, ensembles. But and he plays the keyboards, but he doesn't know how to play the piano. And so
that's true. He doesn't. So he's just kind of.
Can I quickly play?
Please.
Some of his version of Halloween.
I only know him from Inside Amy Schumer.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
He also voiced the character Can of Vegetables in Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I think you did tell me that. Oh, yeah.
He goes by the Jazz Daredevil. And that's how I'm going to find him.
I thought I went by that.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Jazz Daredevil. I can definitely also recommend his song, his cover of Thus Spake Zarathustra. He has a music video for that one. Let me see if I can pull up. So his second album, soundtrack collection. Okay, here we go. Sounds just like John Carpenter, right?
It does.
It does.
Here, I'll skip ahead a little. Anyway, check it out.
That's actually kind of interesting because you can hear the same chord progression like that the other musicians are playing.
Well, because he has real musicians
fucking
playing
around
with him.
like on top. Yeah,
he has some things to say about jazz, and he's really committed to the bit, and has released 3 albums about it.
And
I just
people buy them.
No. I don't know. I don't know if they're actually buying them.
Maybe his acting career is subsidizing his jazz career.
Got it.
Yeah, you know what? Everyone should follow their passions, just like, John Carpenter
is following his passion of smoking weed and playing video games in his home.
Yeah, and
he's earned it.
He has.
Truly has. Because as, even if you're not a fan of slashers, I can't really say that I dislike this movie. This movie's really good.
I agree. Oh, I have really no complaints with this movie. I mean, the worst I could really say is, like, it shows its age, but I find it charming in that sense. So that's not a negative,
I do too.
And
I loved seeing the clothing the girls
I did
were
too,
wearing.
yeah.
Those really high platform shoes that one of the girls was wearing.
Linda.
PJ Souls,
yes.
Linda.
Yeah, PJ
She's
Souls.
walking in those, and I can't tell you how many girls I knew at the time that were wearing shoes like that.
Were you?
No, I was too tall. I had a modified heel. You would have rocked them.
I don't have the best balance, but I can kind of do a platform.
I was going to say a platform I could see, yeah.
I do be rolling my heels a little bit in those.
Not me.
And
wait, I broke my foot doing a photo shoot for this pod.
Yeah, you actually did.
Talking about where his movies fall on a list.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, because I feel like John Carpenter, this is our first John Carpenter movie for this podcast. And I would say, like, 2 of his movies are some of my favorite movies of all time. And so I wanted to kind of ask you, like, what are some of your favorite John Carpenter movies?
In addition to Halloween, Starman.
Aw, his sort of like saccharine.
I loved it. Well, Karen Allen
Yes.
from Raiders of the Lost Ark is in it. Jeff Bridges at his hunkiest and most adorable. And it has emotional. First, she's terrified, and he could morph into a friendly-looking person. Thought that was charming and sad. The fog was creepy.
A fog apologist on this podcast. I also like the fog. So.
It's just creepy, creepy, creepy. And Assault on Precinct 13.
Okay.
I really liked that one.
I also
too.
really like Assault on Precinct 13.
Okay. But the rest of them I either didn't see or didn't really care for them. So that's just kind of where I am on that. I'm not a John Carpenter aficionado.
I've got plenty of blind spots as well.
Okay.
Because I have never seen Starman. I hadn't seen They Live until like a month ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's I would say for me, I love The Thing. And I love Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, those are some of my
favorites. I did see that one, and I don't know why I didn't put that down. I guess I don't remember. I remember I probably liked it at the time.
It's his sort of like adventure fantasy movie.
Okay.
It's like goofy, almost like 40s, like serial influenced.
Okay.
With a young Kim Cattrall.
Oh yes, and it's I don't know, like it.
I loved it.
I think it's aged really well.
I really like that one.
And then. I also like They Live, and I don't know, even like The Mouth of Madness. Like he has.
I've never even heard of some of these. The Mouth of Madness.
So In the Mouth of Madness, and it stars Sam Neill.
Little adorable Sam Neill in it.
It's
it's sort of like
good.
a Stephen King.
Oh.
Well, he's not the Stephen King character, but he's going in search of Sutter Kane. Do you read Sutter Kane? I don't know. I like that movie. We'll cover it at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think John Carpenter kind of has a reputation for movies that came out and didn't do very well, and then have like over time become really well respected. Not all of his movies. He definitely has some, especially from the 90s. Basically from, I don't know, the 90s onward, that don't have a great reputation. But
although one of his later ones I did like. It was for a show
Ward?
called... Oh no,
I'm
not
joking.
that one. There was a show on like Showtime or something called Masters of Horror, where all these famous directors would come in and do like an hour sort of film. And he did one called Cigarette Burns that I actually really liked. That's probably the best and latest John Carpenter movie, like where those meet. Because The Ward is bad.
Yeah, for me it's probably
I watched
Mouth
about
of
2
Madness.
seconds of Ghosts of Mars and said, nope.
And Ghosts of Mars, he's not even really scoring it. It's all like new metal-y type stuff. Or Metallica-esque. I don't really remember that movie very well. But yeah, so like he's become sort of legendary, totally deserved.
But it's kind of sad because I think the sort of audience reappraisal and all of this cult status happened too late in his life for him to really feel vindicated.
Oh, I see.
So from what I have understood from things he said, he still feels more just bitter about critical and audience reception of his movies at the time, and has maybe a harder time appreciating that like they're so beloved.
How
now.
old is he?
He's been about 80 years old for 50 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like when...
He looks, this is unkind, but he looks like he died several weeks ago.
Okay.
And nobody told him.
Yeah, he doesn't particularly care. I have a very nice picture of, I think you're in the picture. It's the two of us with him, and his eyes are just closed. He did not give a shit.
He checked out on you.
He checked out on
everyone. And everything.
And also, you know, he's going through the aging process, and it's hard to stay creative and fresh as you get older. Very few people. I think Stephen King can maintain still readable books that I enjoy.
Check out our episode coming out after this one where we talk about Stephen King books. But also, I mean, John Carpenter is still creative and creating, but I think he's just, as Brett said, totally bitter and over
and that's unfortunate.
Movies.
Yeah, so mostly he is writing and playing music. That's his creative endeavor now, which I love because his music is great. There was the new trilogy of Halloween films,
which
that Mel loves.
I didn't watch them.
Oh, but you have so many opinions about David Gordon Green.
Yeah, I think he should die.
Who is that?
He's a guy
Oh, no.
who
Actor, director.
So he's a director and
Uh-huh.
producer, and I think he's an absolute genius at comedy, but unfortunately, he really loves horror. And he really loves buying up beloved horror properties and shitting all over them.
So he made the most recent Halloween movies where Jamie Lee Curtis returned.
Oh, okay.
But my hatred
Which
for
are not
him
great.
is more specifically geared towards his new Exorcist movie. It was not very good.
Okay.
In fact, I hated it.
Well,
One could say it was
things-
fucking awful.
Some
Yeah.
things shouldn't be remade.
Well, yeah, I
You
guess
know,
it was like a
it's done
sequel, but
once,
yeah.
leave it.
Well, that's kind of how I feel about Halloween,
Yeah, keep
honestly.
making them and making them.
There's
and
like
making
14 of these movies now, and I'm like, some of them are fine, but the franchise is at its strongest. Like, because there's all these different timelines, and it's, oh, this branch ignores these sequels and only includes these, and I'm like, the best continuity is the first movie. End of list. Like,
And
them.
that's
Well,
what-
Michael Myers dies at the end.
well, he's missing from the
sort of.
backyard.
Sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but John Carpenter would agree with you. Like,
Yeah.
he's very open about the idea that he wanted this to be a one-off movie, and then he wanted all of the sequels, I'm doing air quotes, to be different stories about Halloween. Because as you said, this is like a perfect Halloween story. You have your, you go out trick-or-treating, you have the babysitter, you watch scary movies while you eat candy.
And
you
carve
pop-
jack-o'-lanterns.
And you carve jack-o'-lanterns, have your pumpkin smashed by a bully at school. Like,
Yeah.
it's all very atmospheric. It's
Uh-huh.
like
Yes.
Halloween vibes, right?
Yes.
And so it's not a story that needs to be done over and over and over again. And he said that what he wanted to create with this movie was like that sort of small town haunted house, sort of like every small town has like that house.
A creepy house.
It has a creepy house with a story, right?
Yes.
Like I always think of To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Like there's
Yeah,
always
that's true.
this sort of like
the Radley house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, there's always this sort of like
Somebody
legendary
that's
house.
weird.
There's always a
Mm.
weirdo or like a house where something tragic happened. There's just
Yes.
like an old person that, yells at the kids to get off their lawn or
Mhm,
something.
that's right.
And so he wanted to create a story that's sort of like surrounding that small town mythology.
Mm.
And then the movie did well. It did so well that they just made him keep doing it. And so, like, I am a Halloween 3 apologist because I like new stories. But a lot of people, because Halloween 3, for those who haven't seen it, is the only movie in the Halloween franchise that isn't connected to
Yeah,
the Michael Myers story.
Right.
Oh.
It's all different characters, different
Well-
premise, and that's what was John Carpenter's original vision for the series, was like, now it's a weird thing about Stonehenge in the case of Halloween
See, I
3.
thought the town was one of the characters.
Haddonfield?
That town was so charming.
Mm.
And it was so reminiscent of, some of the towns by me, and people walking to school and these houses built in the 30s or the 40s.
Mm.
You grew up in a small town?
I did.
In Pennsylvania?
New Jersey.
Oh, in New Jersey.
Yes.
Oh.
It was so small, though, we didn't have a town center or sidewalks.
Well, we don't have sidewalks in my town, but that's
Yeah.
just because I live in a suburban hellscape.
Right. But yet I was only 20 miles outside New York, so people think we're like the towns you see in the movies, where they're all crowded and there's row houses and all that. I mean, Brett, you remember when
Yeah,
you
it certainly
went
was
to
not
my
that.
town's not like that. There were working farms when I was growing up. We didn't have our own high school. But just that little kind of neighbor where you kind of know the streets, you know your neighbors. That's what that was
Mhm.
reminiscent of to
Was
me.
there a creepy house?
Yeah.
There's always a creepy
There's
house.
always a
Always.
creepy house. And there was a creepy person. They called him the walker. He just walked around town. Nobody, didn't talk to anybody, just walked.
How many people were in your town?
Probably 7,000.
Ooh.
And-
Shout out to the walker. I'm
Yeah, he
sure
just
you're
walked all
dead, but
over.
He's still walking to this day.
Some say.
I kind of doubt, but yeah.
So for those who haven't seen this movie, it's a great one to watch on Halloween or in October.
Absolutely.
Just,
Definitely.
It's great fall vibes.
Right, when the leaves are on the ground and jack-o'-lanterns are starting to come out, that's the time to watch this.
And it's scary, but it's not, I don't think it's like unforgivingly scary.
No,
you
not
know,
at all.
it's
No.
not very jump scare. Like you see him coming. Part of Michael
There's
Myers.
like maybe one jump scare, maybe two in the whole movie.
But yeah, like part of what makes Michael Myers so iconic is he's one of those villains that's just like slow walk teleports around. You know, he doesn't need to run at you. He just sort of is like looming in there, and when
He's watching you from across the street.
He's methodical.
he's very
He sure
methodical,
is.
and like us as the audience, we get, what is it called, like dramatic irony, like where we can see where he is, we see his POV, but our characters that are in the movie, unless it's Laurie,
I was gonna say Laurie's onto him. No one else
Yeah.
is. Nobody
Right.
believes Laurie.
and he has the iconic like mechanic jumpsuit that he steals. He has his William Shatner mask, and he is out there stabbing people.
Yeah. And I love something I love about the character, and like in this movie specifically, not in general, but that the first scene, he's a little boy. It's shot entirely from this little boy's point of view on Halloween night. He's like coming home, he walks around, you see him get a knife out from the kitchen. His sister's boyfriend leaves, he goes upstairs, and he stabs his sister to death and walks outside with a clown mask on. Why did he do that?
They never
Who knows?
explain
It's
it.
never explained,
They
and
do
it never should be.
in the follow-up movies.
No. Mm-mm.
That everyone wanted. Everybody loves a horror sequel that is a prequel that gives us all the backstory. That's what people always say. They love that.
Well, they keep making them, so clearly somebody likes them.
Yeah, the producers who
Oh,
make
yes.
money off of that. All right, is it time for an ad break?
I think it just might be ad break o'clock.
All right, so as part of our hazing ritual, we are going to make our Samantha of the episode, our not Samantha,
Yes.
read our ad copy.
All right. This episode is brought to you by OK Boomer, a
Oh.
support group for boomers who are offended by that phrase. Available at a recreation center near you. Must present Medicare card upon entering.
Look, okay, wait. So,
So good.
boomer is a state of mind, and I think you get a pass.
Well, thank you.
You're one of the good ones.
Well, and I will say, when I first heard that phrase, I look at myself in the mirror in the morning and go, "Okay, Boomer." I thought
Oh,
it
you're
was
going to
yourself
reclaim
up.
it.
hilarious. I thought we deserved
Yeah.
it, and it was funny. And I would just crack up by people that were offended by it, like, "Get over your bad self." That's hilarious. But
Yes.
Well, you grew up in a small town, so there was less like lead fumes in the
Oh,
air.
maybe that's
so maybe
it.
that's why you're a little bit more chill.
maybe
Maybe.
that's it.
Well, thank you, OK Boomer, for that. You'll get a coupon sent to you in your AARP magazine in the mail. So
Perfect.
keep
That's
an eye
right.
out.
Keep
for
an eye out. Enjoy the break, and we'll see you when we get back. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed spending your break reading your AARP magazine and finding our little mailer for the OK Boomer support group.
There's also stickers for your car.
Oh, great.
What are they, Trump stickers?
Yeah, not my
No.
president.
No, OK Boomer for your back window.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so look out for those.
Yeah, if you want to get shot.
If you want to get shot, which we don't judge here at Queer and Loathing. If you want to get shot, that's fine. But yeah, so let's dive right back into our discussion on Halloween.
So,
Ooh.
Ooh.
yeah, the plot of this is pretty simple, but that's kind of the point.
Mhm.
We have Laurie Strode is Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think people malign her as a final girl, but I think she's a great final girl. She's not, like, when you're thinking about final girls, especially these sort of like early, like 70s and 80s.
So,
final
Mom, do you know
girls.
the sort of final girl?
Is that the Survivor?
Yes.
So when you have the horror archetypes, especially for slashers, you have and Cabin in the Woods plays on this really well. But if you have like a group of, let's say, like in this movie, it's kind of 3 friends, but if you have like 5, right? You have the slutty one, she must die.
Of course.
Slut must die.
You have to slut shame.
Looking at you, Linda.
Yeah, you have sort of the jokester, foolish one.
Mm-hmm.
That one also must die. And then if you expand out, you have sort of like, oh, there's the jock, and there's the, whatever, druggy or brainy one, or there are different archetypes. But the one that seems most sort of like, I don't know, like always there.
Level-headed.
Well, you just have the final girl.
Yeah.
And generally the final girl is more prudish, more reserved, more thoughtful, kind of maybe more innocent, and more tuned into that they're in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And the final girl doesn't always survive, but they almost always are the final person that's there. So, like, it's her and her two friends, and then I guess the various boyfriends and such.
Yes.
And there are other people who get killed in this movie, but the babysitters are the ones being hunted, right? And so she basically clocks that there's a weirdo in town. Instead of a walker, he's driving around
I do love
in a
that.
van.
Oh, it's so funny.
And just sort of like looming behind bushes.
Yeah, so I love the random nature of why he's going after Lori. And it's just because her dad's a realtor. He says, you need to drop the key under the mat at the Myers place because I'm showing it later today. And so she does. But unbeknownst to her, Michael Myers is just inside watching her. And she reminds him enough of his sister that he's just like, I'm going to stalk and kill that girl.
And he zeroed in on the little boy.
Yeah. And then he's, Lori's in class. She looks out the window and he is just watching her through the window across the street. And that very, very famous scene that's been replicated in 100 movies.
And it's always so effective.
It's like,
Well, what I liked about that character setup, too, was the fact that she looked like she was daydreaming, but she answered that question beautifully. Like
She
the
did.
student she was. It could have been, oh, I'm so sorry,
Yeah,
but they
she-
didn't do that. She was self-possessed enough to answer the question, and I like
I
that.
did really like that. It's like and also something that I think in a lot of movies after this one, the final girl doesn't get to do any drugs. She doesn't get to have any fun like that. But in this one, Laurie smokes a little weed with Annie when they're in her car. And that's fine, because I think some of these rules kind of inadvertently became utilized. Like John Carpenter has said that he and Deborah Hill didn't mean to punish these girls for having sex. It was just a convenient way to move the plot and like a reason why Laurie would be on alert when they're not.
And girls be having sex.
Right.
Like,
I did like that. Like, not only were they having sex, but it wasn't like they were like pressured by their boyfriends. They were like,
Embracing
get over
it.
here because I'm trying to.
Yes.
Yeah, horny teenage girls.
I liked that.
And the way that they were sort of, I don't know, played off of in future iterations up into like, so for example, the movie Scream is a satire of this slasher, like this specific type of slasher genre, while functioning within the genre itself. And it talks about those rules, right? Oh, these are the horror rules, and this is how you survive a horror movie. And John Carpenter really, he don't be thinking like that.
No.
Like, as good as he is, he's a very sort of like blunt dude.
Yes.
Like, he's not a...
He's not frivolous.
He's not frivolous, and he's not like a Jordan Peele where there's like layers and layers and layers. He's like...
I'd say he's utilitarian.
I think that's very fair. He has a lot of vision and style and an eye for what can make things work and be creepy. And this movie, I mean, it has themes, it has points to it, but at the end of the day, it's sort of a simple slasher movie where there's an evil presence in this town, and you have the obsessed, crazed detective character who's at his heels, and you have these babysitters that are like clueless that they're in the middle of this terrifying movie, and it's really special in that way.
And there were so few adults featured in it. The sheriff was useless.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, Sheriff Brackett was
And
not.
the way they had them collide when she sees the guy and starts walking and her friend runs off and then she bumps right into the father because she wasn't paying attention. But he bumped into her. He saw her and let her bump into him. And at that moment, I thought, that was really creepy. And I found him threatening. And I
Oh.
doubt that it was meant to do that. But as I viewed it this time, I was like, ew, you let her bump into you.
That's interesting. I didn't pick up on that. But you're right. He did. Because I came away being like, oh, Sheriff Brackett. He's like dumb and I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny in that scene where the hardware store's been broken into.
Oh, that was cute.
And the girls are stoned in the car.
Yeah.
And like the alarm's going off, so like shouting over at each other.
That was cute. And Laurie was more worried about this man smelling his own daughter.
Yeah.
Which I thought was,
Yeah. Well, also, I was like, obviously, Michael, he's a serial killer. He's stabbing people all over the town. But the secondary villain to me was Annie. I'm like, you're so mean to Laurie the whole time. And when she died, I was like, she died as she lived, taking advantage of Laurie.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole time I was like, shut up, Annie. My God, lay off. She was like, she's basically, from Clueless.
You're a virgin who can't drive.
That was the character of Annie the whole time.
But again, like, I don't know. I think it really you can really tell that the dialogue was written by someone who was a teenage girl at one point. Like,
she
really
rang true. I think that's why I was so annoyed with her.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't some, like, bitchy, bully, mean girl. She was just, like, the friend who, like, feels comfortable shitting on her other friend. And, like,
well, and the worst thing you could
do
do to a friend that's a little shy is tell a boy that you liked them.
Right. She called up Ben Tramer and was like, Laurie likes you.
That is the worst thing you could have done to a girl at that age. Put her on the spot, because what if the guy doesn't like her?
You could stab them
so
to death.
Mortified.
Well, I guess
there is that
again,
solution.
Michael 1, Annie 2.
And some of the performances in this are so good. Like the was it a camera guy? Who played the body? Was it a stunt guy?
Which body?
Michael Myers.
Oh, The Shape.
Or The Shape, yeah, sorry.
I think it was like just a stunt guy.
It was just some stunt guy.
Was it Dick Warlock in this one? I don't know.
I don't think it was Dick Warlock in this one, but I also wouldn't make a bet on that.
It was Nick Castle.
Oh, that's right. And then you have, I'm just a huge, like, Donald Pleasance fan. And he just becomes so, like, central to this franchise.
Which I will say, he's maybe the saving grace of all the sequels, because as Dr. Loomis, as crazy as he is in this movie...
It just gets crazier.
He gets so much crazier in every other movie, and he's just running around raving like a lunatic, being like, evil is in your town! He's come home!
He's so good.
The only thing I found fault with, and this is just picky, is... It's like he suddenly sees the car that was parked right down the block. It's like, you've been out here
for an hour
watching, and this car's parked and the dude's gone, and you just noticed this car?
I don't think he's that good at his job.
So,
no, I think that's made very clear in this movie.
Because Laurie is going to need a psychiatrist, and he's not the one for her after her experience.
But yeah, we actually start the movie where after the cold open, Michael Myers is in an asylum and escapes, and then is just like opportunity killing people. So he kills like a mechanic and takes his jumpsuit and takes his truck, and then he's just, I guess, goes back to his house, and then is like, he like
robs a hardware store.
He kills a dog and like...
He kills and eats a dog.
But
don't worry, it's not the only dog he kills in this movie. There are 2 dead dogs in this film.
Yeah, so if you were worried that it was just one.
Yeah, don't be, because there's 2.
And he just sort of rampages about, and we have this amazing score that's building tension. You have the little boy, you have the babysitters, and you have all these kind of moving pieces, but the story's like really tight, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And
90 minutes. Perfect amount of time.
I was just talking about this. So, okay, right now, I do these things to myself, and I only have me to blame. But I've been doing Bondtober, where I've been watching every single Aeon James Bond movie. Been watching one every single day. And it's kind of making me nuts. I'm like...
Oh my gosh.
I'm into Pierce Brosnan.
What is the nuts version of you gonna be like?
I know. Oh, God. It's happening. And one thing I just like didn't prepare myself for and just didn't think about is that every single James Bond movie is over 2 hours long. Every single one.
I didn't realize that.
They
Whoa.
really are too fucking long.
Yeah.
And I like most of them. There's only been, I'm in I'd seen them all before, but I'm like rewatching them. And I'm in the Brosnan era. And there's only, up until this point, there's only been 3 I didn't really like. And they were all Roger Moore movies. But I digress. But my point is that, like, I was complaining to my husband. I was like, you know, all of them could be like 30 minutes shorter. Like, really. And they're too long. And he's like, well, most movies are 2 hours long. And I'm like, they don't need to be.
Right.
Right? Like, bring back the tight 90. And there are some movies where I'm totally fine with them being really long. Because they're sort of like celebrations of, I don't know, like self-indulgence. Right? Like, I kind of felt that way about The Substance.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these sort of like auteur type movies, like especially within the horror genre, where they're quite long, like some of the like Ari Aster type movies. But James Bond, no, these are not auteur movies.
Right.
They don't need to be that long. So I appreciate a movie that keeps itself under 2 hours. Bring it back. 70 minutes should be a feature.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with it.
I am too.
And especially if you're gonna do like a whole bunch of them, just like
Yeah. No, I'm with you. There's I think a Roger Ebert quote that I kind of agree with, but it's that no good movie is ever too long, and no bad movie is ever short enough.
Yeah.
And then
He was very wise.
And then to add on to that, it's just like know your audience, and if you're making a popcorn film, maybe it could just be 90 minutes. Leave them wanting more.
Yeah, so for the person listening who is currently in production hell making those new James Bond movies.
Don't be afraid to
90 minutes! Yeah. 90 minutes! It's fine! I promise it'll be okay. I'm losing my fucking mind with these movies. Alright, so back to Halloween. Themes. Go.
Well, I think the main theme...
I wrote down 0.
Okay, well, I do have one.
Okay.
Because obviously in the classroom scene, they're talking about fate in the novel they're reading. And the question that Laurie answers, the sort of gotcha that she does ace, is that the one author they were talking about thought of fate as sort of a religious force, that like God controls your fate. But the author they were actually discussing believed that fate was just like an elemental force like water or fire. And I think that Michael Myers very much encapsulates that idea of like, that's your fate. It's very much, might be a weird comparison, but it makes me think of No Country for Old Men and Anton Chigurh, that sort of killer character in that one. He's just an elemental force, and he's either going to get you or he's not, but either way, it's kind of out of your hands. So I think fate is very much...
I'd say Anton Chigurh is maybe more obviously that, because he literally will like tell you to flip a coin.
Yes.
Whereas Michael Myers is just, if he sets his sights on you through his
thing,
little eye holes,
like,
you're fucked.
But what if like Laurie's dad had dropped off the key instead of her? This movie wouldn't have gone like it did. So that's definitely a theme that I had. And then just the inexplicable nature of evil. Michael is presumably a normal kid until one day he just stabs his sister to death, and then he never speaks again. And then he just be killing. Like, why does that happen? We don't know.
Does he ever speak in subsequent movies?
I don't think so.
Well, that's
I
good.
don't
They
believe he
at
does.
least kept with that theme. Because that, I think, was part of the mystique there. They never found out why he wouldn't speak.
He's supposed to be just sort of like evil incarnate, right? As Donald Pleasance raves about, like a madman.
Which is why I'm okay with him being able to drive a car.
Yeah.
Because they do even talk about it in the movie. They're like, how was he able to drive a car
150 miles
when he was incarcerated as a 6-year-old?
Right.
But I'm kind of like, because he's not
He's
a
a
man.
he's a
just
supernatural
he's
force.
just evil. Yeah, he's just a force.
Yeah, while like this, I don't think most people would consider at least the first Halloween movie a supernatural horror movie. There is something supernatural about him, right? Even if it's just sort of a play on that word of being like more than natural, right?
Right, he takes like, Laurie stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle. Then she stabs him in the eye with a coat hanger. Then she stabs him with a knife. Then he gets shot 6 times.
And then he's just gone.
And then he's just gone.
And
he's still, like, it doesn't get him.
Yeah.
And the movie ends with just showing places he could be, and you don't know where he is.
And you just hear his heavy breathing over all these shots of this location, and it's like, he could be anywhere, and in that sense, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know.
Right.
And I love that ending, and that's why I don't think there should have been any sequels, because I'm like, it's such a perfect ending of, like, that's the scariest next step for this character. Is like, he's out there somewhere, he could be behind you, or anywhere else.
Well, I thought they really set that theme when he was driving to the hospital with the nurse, who was smoking like a mad woman, and she was kind of offended. When are we going to call him he and not it? And he was like, I'm not.
We're not, yeah.
And it was kind of like he's dehumanized. He's not a he is an it, because they don't know what he is. They just know he's extremely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he's the boogeyman.
Exactly.
He's the boogeyman that comes out on Halloween night and
stalks a child and a future Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. Which is true, the little girl.
Yeah.
The Lindsay Wallace is played by Kyle Richards.
Okay.
Grouped to be one of the Real Housewives.
And that's the true horror and the true fear is you don't know.
Is that the cautionary tale from the movie?
And it's the true canonical sequel to Halloween. The only true timeline is Halloween, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
It could happen to you.
It could happen
Watch
to
out.
you. Is that enough themes for you, Mel?
Yeah, I'll take it. So, I think we have to talk just like a bit about the legacy of this movie, just because it is one of the firsts of its type that has been aped so many times. Like famously, like probably the most famous copy of this movie is Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Which became its own sort of like genre in and of itself.
Franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not even just a franchise, but like the sort of like camp horror movies became its own thing, and yeah, again, a franchise, but I think a more beloved franchise, certainly by Brett.
Yes.
But
Friday the 13th is like knowingly silly in a way that Halloween isn't, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the same with like, I would say Nightmare on Elm Street, where as they went on, they just got goofier and people appreciated that. Halloween has been not that way. And
No, they keep trying to take it all very seriously.
Which is, I think, a mistake. Well, the mistake is, as you said, Brett, that there was more than one of these that was involving Michael Myers, because Michael Myers as the sort of silent boogeyman gets a little dry after you just keep doing it over and over again. And the way that the Friday the 13th movies kept it fresh is by just going zany with it and having the kills get more and more extreme.
Yes.
But even just beyond that, I think like...
Well, I think one of the main legacies that I would say is that for its time, Halloween was one of the highest grossing independent films, period. And it was for many years until, actually, I think at least one of the next ones that was also very profitable was The Blair Witch Project. But that influenced movie making. These producers realized, oh, we can make these pretty cheap films with pretty unknown casts, and people will turn out to see them, and we can get series, and so it really kind of changed horror filmmaking, because you go from some of the 70s of like The Omen and The Exorcist and even like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then all of a sudden you're in a whole different era of like, it's a movie written by some guy, directed by some other guy, starring whoever was available. They're off season from like a soap opera and they can be in this movie.
And there's a lot of those kind of like 1970s like gross slasher movies that were out there, but I think this is one of the ones that just made it to the mainstream and has just sustained a good reputation over despite its franchise.
Yeah, despite all the sequels, I mean, I think the first one is still held in very high regard by just about everyone.
I don't know if I know anyone who hasn't seen Halloween. You know, if you ask around, oh yeah, I remember Halloween. That was great. That was scary. That's one of the movies that kind of brought people together because they've all seen it. And it's still seen today.
Yeah.
All these decades later.
And it holds up.
It
holds up
does.
so well.
Absolutely.
Because even like the scares in it, right? So if we can just talk about some of the kills.
Yeah.
Like the boyfriend that gets ghost replaced.
Well, that was the jump scare I was mentioning. Was because he's downstairs getting beer after they have sex. And he sees the back door's open. He thinks someone's fucking with him. So he closes the back door and then he's like, oh, you guys, stop messing around. Or he opens that pantry door. And Michael's just there and runs him into the wall, lifts him up by his neck, and stabs him like through the chest, pinning him to the wall. Almost like an insect.
Yeah.
And then he just stands there and observes him and just does his little creepy head tilt. It's almost like he's curious. He's like, oh my, look at
what
what I've done. Yeah.
And then they show his feet.
Oh yeah, his feet
kinda,
you're right, just kind of droop. You see the
they
life leave his body
focused
through.
on that. And that I thought was a great technique.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
little touches that add, and then having him, he puts on a sheet ghost costume, which is so like classic again,
So
like
good.
classic Halloween.
Yes.
And he puts the boyfriend's glasses on top of it, and then goes after Linda. And then, what's the bitchy girl's name?
Annie.
Annie has probably one of the most, like, tension-inducing, because there's, like, fake-out moments, and...
Oh, yeah, and you see him, like, watching her through the window, and he watches her, so she is on the phone with Lori, making popcorn. She spills butter all over herself, and takes off her clothes before she goes to wash them. But Michael is watching her take her clothes off. So that's maybe where some of that...
But it's funny, because it's, like, I can't even... You don't even think of Michael Myers as someone who's, like, sexed, right?
No.
Like, he's not, like, a...
Rapist.
He's not, like a Black Christmas, like, type
Right,
peeping
no.
Tom, like, perv. Like, he is watching prey, right? He's observing, like, the fact that she's, like, taking her clothes off is probably
maybe
only...
more about vulnerability.
Exactly. It's only more titillating to him in the sense that she is becoming more vulnerable. Because this movie, it's like, while there is sex in it, that's not Michael Myers' thing at all. It's not like, because Jason sort of gets, going back to Friday the 13th, there's kind of that reputation.
Right, he's killing the horny camp counselors.
Punishing the horny camp counselors. But in this, it's like, as you said, the fact that they're horny teenagers is just coincidence.
Yeah, plot convenience, basically.
Yeah, it's like it's making them feel more like realistic for teenage babysitters. It has little to do with what he cares about.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and then he's also got a flair for the dramatic and artistic. The way he stages the crime scene. He's posed all of the bodies and put his sister's headstone.
Which again, he's supernatural. He can do stuff. He can just move headstones around and...
Well, he stole some rope from the hardware store. Maybe he devised some sort of pulley system
to get that headstone in there on that bed.
But yeah, because...
well, the way the sheriff goes, and a couple of knives. What do you think? Well, I don't think kids are going to steal a couple of knives from a hardware store.
Kids.
He's so clueless.
These kids love their knives and rope.
Yeah.
It's good, harmless Halloween fun.
Maybe Haddonfield's just like that.
Who knows? But yeah, and then a sequence that I really love that I can't even really think of a better sort of long shot of just a killer slowly advancing on somebody is when, after Laurie has escaped from that staged crime scene, she's screaming for help. Nobody will help her. The neighbors just turn off the porch light. She's run to the door. She's trying to wake up her babysitting charges to let her in because she's dropped her keys at some point. And Michael is just slowly walking across the street as that music plays. And that still gets me. That still gets me, like, on the edge of my seat. Like,
I'm getting goosebumps just
yeah,
thinking.
I know. That's perfect.
Oh, I really... That's maybe my favorite part of the movie.
That is the scariest
because it's so scary. And you're like, if Tommy doesn't get his ass to that door, he is going to kill Laurie right there, and there's nothing she can do.
And he'll do it.
He
That's
sure
the thing,
will.
is it's not like he's
not waiting
bothered.
No.
He's not bothered about, like, anyone seeing him. And the fact that it all takes place on Halloween night is what's interesting because, people are wearing costumes. People are, they're doing pranks. Kids are running around screaming. So no one is taking the threat very seriously except Donald Pleasance and Laurie Strode once she's like clued into what's happening.
And that was probably the only night he could blend in.
Right.
People could see him in this jumpsuit and mask and just think maybe it's somebody's father. Or,
yeah, they're like, oh, it's just some creepy weirdo.
Yeah, big guy.
Wearing his Halloween mask.
What?
One of those kids who robbed the hardware store. I guess he has a hormone problem.
So to round it out, we'll say, what do we loathe? So you said you were nitpicking one scene. I already forgot what you
Yeah,
were.
it was the Dr. Loomis didn't see the car.
Yes, I love the scene where he suddenly discovers a parked car.
After he's been outside for an hour.
Right
just
down the block.
Lurking in
Yes.
lurking in the bushes.
I love that.
And I get that. Let's see, for me, yeah, I guess just the way that Annie treats Laurie. I don't know, I was just like, leave her alone. She's been nothing but nice to you.
I'll say I loathe the discourse surrounding Laurie shaming.
Oh, she dropped the knife. What a dummy.
She drops the knife after she's supposed to be like a 16, 17-year-old girl.
And you know what? She does pretty damn well, even with that considered.
She does fine. She
stabs him a bunch of times.
She reacts. As scared as she is, she reacts.
Yeah.
And she had pretty good aim. That knitting needle.
I thought so too. And then the hanger in the eye.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And there's no movies that come after this one that examine her character to death, so she's just fine.
Yes.
After this movie,
that's right.
Canonical ending for her is she goes in and gets some therapy and she's okay. But yeah, a lot of people love to shit on her as like, a worthless final girl. She does fine. Not everyone has to be the badass character from like You're Next or whatever.
No, and she, you know what? She keeps those kids alive, which was her main goal.
Well, she was an excellent protector of the children.
She
would keep checking on them. And
she's a pretty good babysitter.
Okay. Absolutely.
She is a pretty good babysitter.
It was made in the 70s. That should explain a lot.
Why?
There were really no female superhero types. Women were really always docile, always screaming, always protect me. I mean, of course, Alien. But there weren't that many movies when I was growing up that had a female character that would fight to the death to protect people like that. And that's what I liked.
Yeah.
So you can't look at it by modern standards either. It's a product of its time.
I think that's totally fair. I think that it is, all things considered, it holds up really well.
It does.
There are some fun moments where you can see you could see John Carpenter's like cigarette smoke passing by the camera and little things where it just shows that this was like a really cheap movie that was made on the fly.
That's right. Apparently they would have to rake up all of the leaves on the ground and bring them with them to the next location.
Yeah,
because it wasn't actually like fall, so they were just had to redistribute the leaves on. Oh, now this shot. Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily look like the Midwest in certain scenes, but I think
it's a rather Californian Midwest. Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really loathe anything about the movie itself, except it's not my favorite movie. But if someone's like, hey, let's throw on a movie that feels like Halloween, this is perfect for that ambiance.
Sure
Great
is.
Description. I agree.
And now,
is it gay?
Is it gay? How gay is it? Tell me.
I love how when we first introduced that segment, Brett, you were like, that's not the final name. We're not keeping it. And we just keep calling it,
yes.
Is it gay? How gay is it? Tell me. So, Luann, is it gay?
No, not gay.
Not gay?
Not gay.
Not gay? All right, the 3 not gays have it.
And the motion passes as straight.
This
which
movie is straight. I mean, I guess you can kind of say that Michael Myers is a non-binary ace icon.
That's true.
But
one could say that if one were so inclined.
I'll say it. I'll be brave. Although it did kill your mom when I just said that.
That's true. So was it worth it?
You're allergic to non-binary people.
Wow.
I didn't hear because I was trying to stifle a cough and I couldn't hold it anymore. That's why I turned.
So on that note, where can people find us?
You can find us on Instagram at queerandloathingpod. You can find us on Gmail, queerandloathingpod@gmail.com.
You can Google us. We have a YouTube. Drop us a like and subscribe. I have a link tree set up. We have Letterboxd. You can follow my descent into madness as I continue cataloging James Bond movies.
Yes.
I have so many more to go. I have so many more.
Well, you'll be in my thoughts
ahead
and
of
or
me.
prayers.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous. But that all being said, I'm queer.
I'm loathing.
And I'm Brett's mom.
Aww.
That's nice.
Oh, that's perfect.